Dan, good to see you. It's been, a couple hours. So it's always good to see you later in the day as well.
Thank you for having me on, Sean.
Yeah. So we talked the last time you were here about the candidates in 2028, and I want to get into that if we have time. But I just want to start. You and I both have a shared interest and experience kind of being around the party committees. And I know not everyone fully appreciates it for a lot of reasons, but I am a big believer that the parties play a critical role, like the infrastructure role. I always tell people that the RNC and the DNC are kind of like the NHL or MLB, like the sports league. Their job is to make sure that they have a great season, that they're bringing in more revenue, but they don't choose the Red Sox over the Yankees, which they should. But the bottom line is they just want great teams, great things. And so the DNC wants a robust process to have the best nominee to win. The RNC, same thing. They don't try to tip, in theory, shouldn't be tipping their scales, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess because some people just will write these stories that the party committees are dead and whatever. I just don't believe in that. I believe that they provide critical infrastructure, rules, financial support, et cetera. Is that fair?
Yeah, look, absolutely. When I worked for Terry McAuliffe at the DNC in 2003, 2004, donors were always asking, what's our message? What's our message? And he would say, it's not our job to come up with the message. We will get a nominee and he or she will have a message that we will rally behind. But we're going to raise the money so that there's a pot of cash for the nominee to inherit and to spend as they see fit. We're going to build up the opposition research and the communications infrastructure. We're going to register voters and try to identify possible targets for persuasion. That is what we're doing for the next couple years until what turned out to be John Kerry. They serve a huge purpose. I mean, ask any Senate candidate in either party who's gone through a competitive primary, emerges, a little poorer for it and a little battered. Whether it's the DSCC, the Senatorial Campaign Committee, the DNC, they come in and provide additional staff and resources. So they play a huge role, and it's one of the reasons Democrats are so freaked out about how dysfunctional the DNC is right now.
Okay, good, because that's where I wanted to go. So thank you for putting the ball on the tee. Because this is what I think, I want to win. And I want as many Republicans as elected, and I'm sure you feel the same way about your side. At some point, though, I do want a good game, right? And it's like you don't want to. If you pay money for the ticket, I don't always want to see a blowout. Sure, once in a while, and so I'll just start it with this. There's been a lot of critique over the past couple of weeks about the DNC under the leadership of the new chairman. Where do you see the party right now? Is it in a transition? Is it really in free fall? Are the priorities backwards? The chairman not doing his job? What, based on your experience, do you think the state of the DNC is?
So the Democratic National Committee is in a lot of trouble right now. Start at the top, right? We had a messy race to be chair. The winner, Ken Martin, has really been one of the weakest and almost most impotent chairmen that we've had in the last 20 or 30 years. Sean, as you know, if you're complaining, you're often losing. And the fact that he, it was recorded on an audio tape that he spent the better part of the majority of a call with his members complaining about a vice chair and how
David
much,
Hogg.
Yeah, and how much publicity he's getting, how much attention he's getting, how hard it's making his job. Just start right there. It's a terrible look. And why is that important that Ken Martin looks weak and impotent? I just talked about raising money, right? Donors don't want to give to someone that they think isn't in control, who isn't strong. I'd like to think every donor gives because they just want to support the cause, but they usually kind of have something that they want, or they want to know that you'll take care of them. It might just be a good seat at the next dinner with the president or the presidential candidates. The Democratic National Committee, the last decade or so, has often enjoyed about a 2-to-1 cash on hand advantage against the Republicans and what's primarily been Donald Trump, give or take here or there. It is being reported that the RNC right now has a 3-to-1, greater than 3-to-1 cash on hand advantage against Democrats. So Ken Martin is really struggling to raise money. Major donors are going on the record that they don't see a reason to help him, that they have a lot of questions. The second big alarming factor is you want to raise money, but ultimately the name of the game is to get more votes than your opponent. Republicans are continuing. They did this in 2023, 2024 really well. They are registering new voters at a very, very fast clip. And the Democratic National Committee is struggling to register new voters. And so if you're just sitting back thinking about 2028, the next time we're going to have a chance to try to get the White House back, the Republicans are just quietly marching down the field, doing all the blocking and tackling, the things you want to do to get ready. We're a complete circular firing squad right now, potentially having to borrow money to just keep the lights on. That's not good.
So to your point, I had my buddy Seth Keshel on the show the other day, and he is like all about statistics and voter registration numbers, et cetera. In 29 of the 30 states where people register by party, every single one of them has become more Republican. Yep. Either blue states have become less blue or red states have gotten redder, right? And the only exception is New Jersey. And as of when I talked to Seth last time, New Jersey just hadn't updated its thing. So we could go 30 for 30. At worst, we're going 29 for 30, which I would have taken any day when I was in high school. So I guess my point is, like, you're absolutely right on this. And if you see it, you can't, like, those numbers don't lie, right? Every blue state is getting less blue. I mean, California is still blue, but it's not as blue. Yep. And New Jersey is losing, getting closer. I think it's a 12-point registration advantage instead of a 14. But if you're the party chairman, to your point, and you say, hey, in every state that we can track it, we're doing worse. Yep. I don't know how you get people excited.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem, because the first question, if I approached you, and Sean, you have a lot of money, so I would obviously come to you to try to raise some, you would say, what is your plan?
Right.
To try to change the tide here? And I think, again, this is where, what is Ken Martin spending a lot of time doing? Fighting with David Hogue, firing prominent or asking to leave prominent union officials that have been members of the DNC for years. Like, why would you pick those fights, right? I mean, if times were really good, okay, maybe you want to try to, get even a little bit, but like, you have the bandwidth and you have the goodwill within the party to make some changes. He's got neither. And I think that is where, and I'm sure we'll maybe get to this some more. You look outside the walls of the DNC, there's no leadership from Chuck Schumer on kind of issue after issue. There's very little leadership from Hakeem Jeffries. And if you're thinking about 2028, most of these candidates are saying, why do I want to step into this mess, right? I'm going to focus on my state or my duties. And so what you have is a leaderless political operation right now, while on the other side of the aisle, whatever I think of them, a very strong leader of the Republican Party who knows exactly what he wants to do, has a well-tuned team that's all rowing in the same direction, and a vice president who quietly and methodically is just, getting ready to potentially run himself.
I have a saying that I use a lot in politics, which is mechanics matter.
Yeah. So
you can be a great candidate, you can have a great message, you can even raise good money, but if you don't get the mechanics right, the voter reg, the voter turnout, the get out the vote efforts, the follow up with, donors, all that kind of stuff, the mechanics of a race. It's like having a great product and not knowing how to take it to market, right? Yep. And so to your point, I think the party's main role is, hey, we're registering the voters. We got some people out there doing it. Our fundraising lists are up to date. I mean, boom, boom, boom. Here's the mechanics. I say that because when I joined the RNC under Reince Priebus back in 2011, we were almost $25 million in debt. We were like
good old days for us.
No, right. But you guys had money, and so we literally had to go into a presidential cycle and said to our potential nominee, Mitt Romney, but even before that, as we went into the process, like, hey, we're trying to just get ourselves out of this hole first before we can even help you. Now, we did it because I think and this is what I find so fascinating about a guy like Ken Martin, is the playbook's there. Yep. So Reince Priebus was not, he was not trying to be the message guy, to your point. Like, he was basically saying, I get the role of the party. He, like Ken Martin, was a former state party chairman. He said, we're going to focus on mechanics and logistics. We're going to build a great data operation, a great opposition research operation. We're going to a bracketing operation, a surrogate operation. We're going to do all of this stuff to support you, to be the staffing agency to our candidates so that we can give you that support. Why isn't Ken Martin just doing that? Like saying, I get it. Like all I want to do is focus on mechanics. I'm going to get all these candidates together, have some big fundraisers, get the money together, do the donors. Like, I don't think this is a tough, this is not like he's trying to reinvent the wheel or make a new circle. It's all there. Just do it.
Yeah. And look, and you know, one of the great things too, Sean, is in 2011, you know, Republicans were a little divided. They were demoralized. Like they were uncertain. Could you beat Barack Obama? Our party is hungry to take on Donald Trump. They are hungry. You know, you look at these protests and all these things. Like there's energy in our party, and yet he can't harness, and the party can't harness any of it. Like they're being led around by the base, kind of out of control. And I think it pretty soon, I think the question is going to have to be asked: can he survive in this job? Can we really afford to continue to have this much dysfunction? If I am the Bill and Hillary Clinton and I care about the party and I'm trying to do things behind the scenes to get us off the mat, I would be looking at this saying, like, we need to talk about making some changes. And if I'm a 2028 candidate, it is in my interest that place be, you know, not have no debt, be doing the things that you just described. So, I mean, hopefully this is kind of the bottom and they're able to fix it. And if not, I think they're going to have to think about making a change.
So you mentioned Bill and Hillary Clinton. So first of all, I want to ask you this. Do they care enough? Like if I'm Bill Clinton, I'm sitting back, rolling in the speech fees, et cetera. I'm like, do I really need this fight? Okay. So that's number one that I want to ask you. But then secondly, who is he the right person? So if somebody does this, because Chuck Schumer, I don't think has the stick to do it. Yep. Hakeem Jeffries not. Is Clinton the only one that could do it? Is it Obama? But like who? Because this guy, Ken Martin, was elected. He is the chairman. He runs out his term unless they take him out internally. But like, who has the gravitas and might want to take it out? I'm thinking if it were me, if I were you guys, I'd get Rahm Emanuel and say, hey, dude, I get you might want to be president, but this is where the team needs you, brother. And I know that he's got some issues with the base, but everybody can agree that Rahm could do the job. Or I don't think Terry McAuliffe wants it back. But again, same kind of deal. A guy that's got some gravitas, some messaging, some organizational skills. But like, who could do this and who would want to?
Well, I think, and you're going to laugh here. I mean, I think the way that you do this a little bit is the same way that they got Joe Biden out of the race, which is it really is people like Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama. Yes, Bill Clinton cares about the party. Like, he's a political animal. Like, he consumes this stuff nonstop for fun. If you bumped into him on the street, Sean, he'd just start talking to you about the mechanics of, you know, what's happening in Virginia and how do you see the governor's race and, you know, who's going to win Northern Virginia and these like swing counties that, you know, like he thrives on it. And so one of the things that I love about Bill and Hillary Clinton is they do care about the Democratic Party. They do want to see it be successful. Now, you know, they were not going to lead the charge against Joe Biden because Bill Clinton felt like people tried to run him out during Monica Lewinsky and he wasn't about to do the same thing. But I do think that the people like Pelosi, even Schumer and Jeffries to some extent, if they got together, as you know, these are like high school clubs. You know, the RNC members and the DNC members that decide this stuff are a club. And a lot of them were either appointed by Bill Clinton or, you know, Al Gore. Like, you just go through our nominees, and that's who they kind of have allegiance to and gratitude to for putting them in the position that they're in. You would need to go to them. And I think if you said, look, guys, and I think ultimately you asked Ken Martin to resign. We don't want to have another public execution, so to speak, here against another person. But I think you just kind of say, look, you're struggling. There's a lot of frustration. Here's, you know, we've lost faith in you. Don't make us go public. You know, we did it to Joe Biden. We can certainly do it to you. And let's move on. So
when you say that, though, the thing that I can't help but think is that you guys had a really robust race for chairman. What was the guy's name? Ben Winkler from Wisconsin, right?
Wisconsin, yep.
Yeah. Like, you guys had this out there. You had forums. Like, what did you guys miss it? Like, or is he just bad? I mean, he ran, I think what by a lot of people said, he ran a very successful state party operation.
Yep.
Like, is he just not ready to play in the big leagues? Like, and if not him, then who?
Yeah. I mean, look, great questions. We also had like Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, and there were a couple different people who threw their hats in. Look, I think just like a business sometimes goes through a very, broad search for a CEO and they vet him or her very carefully, and then the board votes. And then sometimes, as you know, Sean, candidates get into those seats and they just don't meet the moment. And I think for whatever reason, Ken Martin is saying the quiet part out loud. I am really struggling. I can't get my footing. I can't get good press. I can't put a lot of this drama behind me. And I think he even said in one of the calls, I'm not sure I'm the right person for this. When you start openly talking to people, like maybe he hoped everyone would be like, no, of course you're perfect. I'm not so sure that happened on the call. There might have been, a little bit of silence there. And so I think it is a black eye on the party, but at some point you have to cut your losses and just say, look, this might have been a mistake. He certainly appears to be overwhelmed. And I think as you, Mark and me have talked about a little, Mark has heard the same things that I have, which is that when he calls donors, they're not even, it's not that they're saying no. They're not even like taking or returning the call. Like that is an even bigger problem, that the frustration is so great that it's like, I don't even want to speak to him. He hasn't even called somebody like Alex Soros.
Right.
Despite
he's
what
the Mac Daddy money man.
Right. Whatever you may think of the Soroses, and
they got money.
Our family, yes, they are a big deal in our family. And it's like politics 101. I mean, it's hard to not get their money. So, at some point you might say, okay, you had a rough patch. Like now in the next 3 months, you got to show us that you're putting this behind you. And if not, we need to have a difficult conversation.
One of the things that Reince did, and again, this is why it's so amazing, because we were said it all out loud, so it's all out there, is where I'm surprised that Ken Martin is, because he's not well known, right? But neither was Reince Priebus. Ken Martin's from Minnesota. Reince Priebus was from Wisconsin. But if I were Ken Martin, I'd say, great, I'm going to go get Martin O'Malley, Terry McAuliffe, Rahm Emanuel, and I'm going to say to them, hey guys, look, I can't even get my calls returned. Some people just don't know who I am. They don't like me, but they know you. They'll take your calls. Can I have instead, you brought this up, the labor leaders like Randy Weingarten, who's head of the Powerful Teachers Union, says, I'm literally leaving. I'm walking away. And to me, he's going the opposite direction. He's shedding constituencies that are critical to the Democratic Party, instead of saying, guys, I won, but I need everybody together because we're going to have a nominee that's going to have to take on J.D. Vance or whomever. Yep. And I need the money. So can I ask all of you to join in with me? Because Reince got every former chairman, and they would meet once a month. And the idea was to show this unified force. You may not know me yet. My name's Reince Priebus. You may not know me yet, but you do know Haley Barbour. You do know Jim Nicholson. You do know Ken Mellman, right? And we're all going to make an effort to support the party going forward, because we know what's at stake. I don't feel like he's even trying to do the basics.
No, and on a similar note, one of the things that Terry McAuliffe did in 2003, because if you recall, Democrats had a wide open primary. You had Gephardt and Howard Dean and John Kerry. There was the threat of Hillary Clinton, was thinking about it. Wesley Clark came in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Terry got everybody together, including Wesley Clark, who had been thinking about it. And he said, look, I'm going to arrange a handful of events around the country, LA, New York, Boston, Palm Beach, like the big money areas. And I need each of you to commit that you're going to reach out to your major donors and tell them to help us, because hopefully one of you is going to be our nominee, and it's in your interest to start funding us. And even John Edwards was the kind of least excited about it. I think when he looked around the room and everyone else said yes, he was like, all right, I'm in too. And to your point, Sean, it allowed us to try to say, look, we're going to have a family fight. It's going to get a little messy. But behind the scenes, we're all invested in trying to win this thing back. And I think that is just what is completely missing. And even on the low dollar side, I don't get the sense that the DNC is finding a lot of success with low dollar donors. At the same time, our party's base is boiling with anger and marching in the street. How do you not capitalize on that to raise low dollar money?
Yeah, that's exactly. Tap into that. Say, can you give us $50, $20, whatever? Yep. Yeah, I mean, you're pissed. Act on it. Do something. So I can't remember when exactly you guys had the election, whether it was February or March, but let's just call it, 4 months, something like that. Would you guys give Ken Martin 6 months or 8 months? What's the runway on this before the talk? either that he rights the ship, or you say, or those conversations that you're talking about start to bubble up to the top? Is this 3 more months, 6 more months?
Probably through the November elections, right? We have 2 big gubernatorial races. New Jersey, where I think, as you said earlier, we're on a little bit of defense in that state. I mean, Trump did a lot better than I think people thought. You could look at the mix of kind of, it's a little bit like Pennsylvania to some extent. Obviously, it's a border state. Once you get outside New York City and the surrounding suburbs, New York becomes a lot redder, and kind of parts of New Jersey. And then we obviously have the big one down in Virginia, where Glenn Youngkin is the Republican, is the sitting governor. He obviously can only run for 1 term, but if Democrats can win that back, the DNC traditionally, along with the Democratic Governors Association, tends to play a role in both of those races because they're always the year after the presidential. Let's say that the DNC cannot fund the get out the vote operation the way they traditionally would. Let's say that they're not able to buy some advertising starting around Labor Day for that last 2-month push like they traditionally would. I think that's when hopefully you win, you get through November, and you say, look, we got a much bigger set of things coming up the following November in the midterms. You couldn't get your act together this year. It almost cost us, or it made the job a lot harder. This is the time between now and January. So let's say 4 more months, put up or shut up.
It's interesting because I as you were talking, I was thinking about this. Sometimes in politics, you get credit for things you don't deserve, and you get blamed for things. Okay, so if I think you and I, where I stand on Virginia. I think New Jersey is an uphill climb, but I think Jack Ciattarelli is going to potentially could give Mikey Sherrill a good run if he gets the money in the bank. It's a very expensive state. I always find New Jersey. I've done a couple races there. It's so fascinating because it's the 10th largest state with no media market. You got New York to the north and Philadelphia, southwest ish. Yeah. And so anyway, but it's a tough one. Virginia's expensive too because of the Northern Virginia DC market. But let's just say hypothetically, for the sake of this discussion, that you carry both. You win, you take back Virginia, and you win New Jersey, right? Does Ken Martin get credit even if they don't do anything, or like that's like, is that one of those moments where he could survive even though he didn't do a good job?
No, I mean, I think he'll try, right? He'll certainly try to say, which is one of the things he's doing now, is to say, look, in these special elections, like there was like a House race in Iowa, Iowa State House race, a state Senate race in Pennsylvania, little things here and there where Democrats have overperformed and won. And so part of his messaging is like, it's a mess in the Beltway with all these people who have nothing better to do but complain about my leadership. But out in the real world, I'm putting points on the board. And I think a lot of people kind of chuckle about that because I've not heard a single one of these campaigns say, oh, the DNC really did come in and, had a big ad buy or a big, lit drop to try to, get people fired up, or they found an extra pocket 5% of the vote or something like that. So I think the people that know, and the DNC is a club, again, it's a very insular, inside the Beltway, literally club. I don't think they'll be persuaded by that. I think it really is going to be, if they look around and, are they raising money? Where are we on all the mechanics of this stuff? And, did we win in spite of him?
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.